Mountain Mornings, and you are listening on WINQ AM Brattleboro. I'm your host, Olga Peters, 10 minutes past the top of the hour. And, hey, Chris Mays from The Reformer, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing okay. You know, it's a little rainy, so the energy's a little low, but do you have your plan to go to the polls and vote today?
Yeah, it was misting a little here now, but I see the sun starting to come out, and I'm slowly getting out the door. I'm going to be at the office late tonight, just getting the results onto the website because it's past our deadline. So we'll be getting the results and some information out right after we get it with the primary. But to your question, I'm going to the polls, I think, probably right when they open. I vote at the Dover Town Hall. Mm-hmm. I live in Dover.
Yes, I'll be heading up to the polls since I live in Dummerston. I was already at work before they opened, so I'll be heading up to the polls after I eat lunch and before I go to the Commons to do my stint at covering the primaries.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I've been reading all the articles about the governor candidates, and
mm-hmm.
and I was like, I haven't really thought about who I'm gonna. I mean, I've thought a little bit about it, but I really just think of it as like who is everyone else gonna vote for? What's the outcome gonna be, rather than who am I gonna vote for? And so today it kind of hit me like, oh, what am I doing today?
It's so good to hear you say that, because I think that is something a lot of journalists fall into, is you get so busy kind of looking at these candidates and analyzing them for everybody else that you then forget, oh, right, I have to make a choice. I have to make my choice.
Yeah, it really dawned on me this morning.
My mother called me last night and she says, okay, I'm going to the polls tomorrow, so let's talk about these people. Who are they? What do they stand for? And I'm thinking, I said, Mom, and it's so funny to hear my mother say that, because it goes to this next point that a lot of folks have been saying, that this primary is kind of sleepy and the mm-hmm. governor's race has been kind of sleepy, because my mom is a news hound. I mean, she listens to VPR every morning. She watches the nightly news every night. She reads the newspaper. She really loves information. And for her to be calling me the day before she votes to ask about different people is unheard of. And I think it speaks volumes to this kind of sleepy governor's race we've had.
Yeah, and I think it's funny when the media calls it sleepy, because for me, I'm like so steeped in it. But then when I take a step back, I'm like, wait, are a lot of people paying attention? And it's hard for me to gauge, because I'm in the office reading all this news, mm-hmm. Writing some of it, and but then primaries are generally not very well attended or voted in.
Mm-hmm. Is there any particular race that you'll be keeping an eye on today?
Well, the Senate. The mm-hmm. Senate race for Windham County.
Right.
There's a challenger, Wayne Esty of Brattleboro.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually the zoning administrator too here in Dover, and he's challenging Becca Ballant and Jeanette White, who have been in their positions for some time now. So it'll be interesting to see how voters respond to that.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I'll also be following the state rep race between Valerie Stewart and Emily Kornheiser.
Yep. Will you be following the race in Dummerston between Nader Hashim, Cindy Jerome, and Mike Maricki?
I believe my coworker Susan Small here will be following that.
Mm-hmm. I feel very lucky as a Dummerston voter that I get to choose between those three candidates, because all three of them have some really amazing strengths.
Yeah.
Chris and I have to go to break, but before we do, Chris, I want to ask you, we have a local resident in the governor's race. Brenda Siegel.
Hmm.
I don't know. What do you think her chances are of winning the primary?
Well, I actually feel like she's gotten a lot of attention.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not as much as Christine Halquest and Ethan Sunborn. Even though Ethan is younger, it was more of like a sensational thing. Here's this 14-year-old running, and he'll get some votes too.
Mm-hmm.
But I really have. I guess I don't really have much of an idea of how it will go. It will be exciting to see.
It will be, and I think it's hard for us to tell because since Brenda's local, I think we put more focus on her.
Hmm.
So it's hard for me to gauge what the rest of the state has been kind of perceiving of her. Welcome back to Green Mountain Mornings here on 100.3 FM, AM 1490, 22 minutes past the top of the hour. I'm your host, Olga Peters, and welcome back to my guest, Chris Mays from The Reformer. He's on the phone from Dover. How you doing, Chris?
Good. Can't complain.
Can't complain from the, 5 minutes ago since we talked?
Yeah.
Since you're in Dover, that reminds me, Dover just passed ordinance around marijuana dispensaries. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Last Tuesday, the select board adopted the ordinance unanimously that will ban medical marijuana dispensaries.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they did was they put some language in there that will allow them to collect most of the funds associated with fines for smoking marijuana in public, that's illegal under state law. And so, I checked this with their lawyer too, and they're under the belief that this ordinance will allow them to get most of that money, which is a good thing for them, I guess.
So just to clarify, Chris, I'm sorry, I was confused there. So I know smoking marijuana in public is illegal under the state law. Is collecting fines on behalf of the town illegal under the state law?
Well, I don't know if it would necessarily be. It might be the state police who collect that fine. If they're called.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how, if the town, if the town finds somebody smoking marijuana in public, I guess that the state would receive most of that money if they don't have an ordinance like this. Okay,
I'm with you.
And so the penalty is $500. There's waiver fees for the first offense and second offense, $150 for the first and $250 for the second offense.
Wow, but that's still pretty significant.
Yeah, and this is something I became aware of when there was this big marijuana and music festival in Dover, and the chief of police warn the organizers, hey, this is a possibility if people are, very publicly smoking in public. This might be something they might face, and luckily nothing came of that. Everything was fine. But yes, the police chief in Dover, Randy Johnson, he's really been behind this effort. He's wanted an ordinance in place for several years now. Mm-hmm. He worries about the federal marijuana being illegal on the federal level, and he just worries about people driving and what a dispensary might bring to town, I guess you would say.
Even a medical dispensary.
Yes.
Huh.
I think his idea is to just, try to keep this out of town for as long as he can.
I can see his point. I mean, one thing that's very unique about Dover is with the ski area, you have the population can change so much weekend to weekend. and it's probably easier to just have one blanket rule for everybody.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can kind of see his rationale there.
Yeah, and
Um,
they have 45 days from adopting the ordinance for someone to file a petition, and
mhm.
if someone does, then that will trigger a townwide vote on
Ah,
whether the ordinance should stay or go. And I bumped into the police chief on Sunday during the Deerfield Valley Farmers Farmers Day Fair
uh-huh.
in Wilmington. And he said, yeah, I'm kind of expecting a petition to come, so he doesn't think it's over just yet.
Well, that's why we have these processes so people can just voice their concerns.
Yep.
Now, tell me quickly about there's developments in Vernon around is it a biker group?
Yeah, it's a motorcycle club called the Iron Militia, and the select board chairman Josh Unruh, he said that this is not a charter of the Hells Angels. He was kind of dispelling some rumors on Facebook on Friday, and I caught up with him on Sunday, and I checked in with Sheriff Keith Clark, and the sheriff said that they had heard some rumors. There was a group wanting to buy this bar, Nesbitt's,
Mm-hmm.
on Fort Bridgman Road, and so far it was all rumors to him at this point. Now I understand Josh had a meeting, was supposed to meet with some people yesterday, so I'm hoping to follow up on that today.
Mm-hmm.
The bar's been closed for about 2 months now.
Mm-hmm.
So people saw a no trespassing sign up, and they started asking questions on Facebook. So that's how all this came to light last week.
And so it sounds like people are concerned about this becoming a hardcore biker bar or something.
Yeah, I think that's some of the concern. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so it sounds like, though, until Josh has his meeting, we won't really have deep details.
Yeah, and he has encouraged residents to come out to the next select board meeting, which is next Tuesday, the 21st at 6:30.
Mm-hmm.
And he said they'll do their best to answer any questions the public has about this.
Well, good luck. Will you be covering that meeting?
I cover the Brattleboro Select Board meeting, so I'm trying to
That's
get
right.
my coworker Bob Audette to go.
I look forward to seeing that coverage if Bob goes.
Yeah.
We are back, and this is Green Mountain Mornings on 100.3 FM, AM 1490, 37 minutes past the top of the hour. And Chris Mays from The Reformer is with me on the show right now. So, Chris, as always, wonderful to have you.
Thank you.
Tell me, I haven't had a chance yet on the show to talk about last week's select board meeting. It's just been kind of a busy few weeks. So tell me, what were some of the highlights?
Well, I think the biggest thing was the board's approval for this big project to take out the current parking meters
Mm-hmm.
and pay and display kiosks and replace them with new ones, so that people will be able to pay with credit cards and debit cards and phone apps as well as coins and cash.
Oh, wow. So they decided, because there had been discussion about whether the board would go for just credit cards, just apps, or just coins. And it sounds like they've gone for all the above.
Yeah, and they found this company that other municipalities are working with as part of this big overall bid, where any governmental group within the United States can join in and have their meters replaced. It's going to be $275,000 to do this.
That's quite an expense.
Yeah, and well, they're taking the money out of the utility fund, which has
Mm-hmm.
more than $4 million in it now, and they're going to loan it to the parking fund.
Oh,
So these
interesting.
are two funds that the town uses to keep those things running.
Right, and both of them are what are known as enterprise funds, which means they're not paid for with taxpayer money. They're paid through fees.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And so they're expecting this to happen sometime early next year, and some people will read my tweets on Twitter when I'm at the board meeting, and they'll like or share or retweet. And that was the one that really got people going. One of our state reps said, "Finally!" with an exclamation point, and then there were and then there were several people who just liked or retweeted that one, and they were excited about this development.
Why do you think parking is such a big deal in Brattleboro? It seems like we spend a lot of time talking about parking.
I think, for me, I sometimes when I'm driving downtown, I'm stressing about finding a parking space or where I should park. There's different choices, what would be best for me. And it's this whole big, thing in my mind about, stressing. And then once I get down there, it's not a big deal at all. And I think that's something that was reflected in this parking study that was done
Mm-hmm.
earlier this year.
And so the work should begin next year, so in 2019?
Yeah.
And how long are they expecting it will take to complete?
The timeline is still very much up in the air. The town officials felt comfortable about saying sometime early next year this will all, be in place.
Okay. Well, wow, big doings.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I know it's a big thing for convenience. That's one of the things that stresses me out when I go downtown. Do I have enough coins? Do I have any coins?
Mm-hmm.
I often have to give quarters to one of my coworkers because he constantly forgets. But I try to bring enough for both of us.
You're so sweet. You're a little coin fairy, little quarter fairy.
Yeah.
Speaking about kind of in the vein of cars, didn't the town also work on something around permits for, say, Uber and Lyft companies or drivers?
Yes, there were only 3 select board members present at the meeting,
Mm-hmm.
but they all gave the town staff, the town manager, and assistant town manager, the nod to go ahead and bring an amended ordinance to the next board meeting, and this is so that municipal regulations for taxis would also apply to other vehicles for hire, such as limousines, shuttle services, and Uber and Lyft, which are being called transportation network companies.
Mm-hmm.
They had this ready to go and ready to discuss, but they put it on the back burner for a little while because the legislature was addressing it.
Right.
And now the state requires some of the things that the town was concerned about. They need, certain levels of insurance need to be had, and then they need to run background checks on their drivers, the companies, and the vehicle inspections. But there was nothing about registering to do business in the town.
Mm-hmm.
In towns. So there's taxi operators right now have to pay $25 a year for a permit and pay $100 per year for their vehicle.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So the town thinks this is kind of a there's an uneven they need to level the playing field.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they want to do.
Was there anyone there talking about the sharing economy and how things like Airbnb and Lyft and Uber were supposed to be, I don't want to say skirting these kind of regulations, but a little bit, in the sense that it's supposed to make easy access for someone who wants to make some extra money, have access to that revenue stream?
Yeah, actually, Select Board member Tim Wessel talked about that a little bit, and he said he doesn't think there's any more than 15 to 20 Uber drivers serving Brattleboro residents right now, and he expects only 5 or 6 would continue if these fees are imposed upon them. Mm-hmm. And he actually said he signed up to be an Uber driver and decided it really wasn't for him. Mm. So yeah, and the chairwoman, Kate O'Connor, she also talked about the sharing economy and how the state has been looking at leveling the playing field for Airbnbs, and now it's Uber. Mm-hmm. And the big thing for the Select Board was they didn't want to wait on the state, because the legislature has commissioned a study on doing a statewide regulation for vehicles for hire.
Okay.
So Kate said, I don't want to wait for them. Let's get this going.
Okay. Yeah, I find this process really fascinating. I know some folks who live in New York City who are actors, and that's kind of how they love being Uber drivers, because they can slot the work in so easily around auditions and assignments and things like that. But, instead of being a waiter or a waitress, which is kind of the usual thing that they tended to do.
Yeah, I just went to my friend's wedding in Long Island, and he was in between jobs, and he was looking at paying for a wedding, and he was picking up some work as an Uber driver on the side.
So we shall see what the fate of the sharing economy becomes once all these regulations have gone into place.
Yeah, it definitely changes the landscape for sure.
It does. It does. Anything else from the Select Board meeting you want to touch on?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, then let's move on to one of our favorite topics, and the topic that you are so immersed in, lucky you, is the Hermitage situation. Didn't the tax department just sue Barnes for what, $1 million?
Yeah, so this kind of comes as no surprise. Right after the foreclosure brought upon by Berkshire Bank, the properties were being shut down by the Vermont Department of Taxes for not paying taxes for meals and rooms and sales and use. So collectively, for those two types of taxes, the Hermitage owes $1,007,600. And so, but Jim Barnes, the founder of the group, is the only defendant listed in this lawsuit, which is strange compared to the other lawsuits we're seeing.
Yeah,
it's all Hermitage Club Real Estate Holding Company, Hermitage Club LLC, and whatever other entities are involved. But with this, it's just Jim Barnes, and the lawyer for the tax department said, as its corporate officer for the Hermitage Club, Jim Barnes is responsible for getting these taxes in.
Okay, that's really interesting. So that was a decision on behalf of the tax department. That wasn't a result of so many court cases changing the structure of the company.
Yeah, no, and it's also interesting because there's been other judgments, by the judge has ruled in favor of a few plaintiffs, saying that that they're owed this money, that there's no trial, that this is clear cut, and so I guess it's just a caveat for the tax department.
Mm. Huh. That's very I find that fascinating. What does it look like? I realize it's August now, and so the Hermitage is a few months away from opening for ski season. But what does it look like for the Hermitage come ski season? Does it look like it will be open? Does it look like it will be in use? What's the landscape there?
Well, company officials, Jim Barnes and the new president, Harper Sibley, they're talking about, this deal with Oz Real Estate where they'll come in and settle the debt and the judgments owed in lawsuits and be open for the winter season. But there's a receiver. He was appointed to preserve the value of the properties that were foreclosed on. Mm. And he's saying that, there needs to be $85,000 worth of repairs to the ski lifts. And earlier he was talking about, something like $200 and something $1,000 for maintenance to the ski lifts. Hmm. And so far I haven't heard that that's being done. Mm-hmm. But as far as I'm aware, the company does hope to open for the ski season.
Okay. Huh. Wow. I admire you sticking with this beat because it's got so many twists and turns and nuances.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, my editor asked me to take a few days and just work on, the impact of all this. And mm-hmm. In the weekend's edition, there were 2 pages just dedicated to the history of the Hermitage Club, the economic development impact, and what could come, and what are people hoping for, what do people expect, and et cetera, et cetera.
While you were culling and collating all that information, did you have any aha moments that you weren't kind of expecting?
You know what? It was interesting to talk with Gordon Bristol, he's a consultant, so he had construction crews working at the Hermitage, and he's owed money. I've had trouble getting contractors on the phone who are owed money. Mm. Some of them say that, oh yeah, I'll talk to you, and then it falls through. And it's understandable. And so when I got Gordon on the phone, he talked about how a lot of people will go back to work for them. Mm-hmm. A lot of these contractors, he said, probably lost their profit by not getting paid over these last months. But if they're made whole again, and leadership seems promising, they'll come back to work again. He talked about a lot of money coming into this valley and how great it was, and how if there's a good model for this, it could continue.
That is interesting, because you would expect that folks, if they weren't getting paid, would just kind of wipe their hands and walk away. So Chris and I are out of time, but as always, Chris, it was wonderful having you on the show. And good luck covering the primaries today. I hope it's not too late at night.
Thanks. Yeah, maybe I'll see you out there.
I bet you will.
All right, cool.
Okay, take care.